Hello and welcome to HBM's UFO Corner. We're going to be talking about an interesting case. The Falcon Lake incident is Canada's best documented UFO case even over 50 years later. Son of man involved in the famous Manitoba UFO case has written a book about ongoing mystery. This was posted in 2017, so 7 years ago. I think this happened in 1960. Oh, it's 67. Okay, it says 67. I thought it was 68 for some reason. Stan Michalak can still vividly remember when his dad came home sick and injured after something happened in the Falcon Lake woods in Manitoba on the May long weekend of 1967. It was something that put his family life into upheaval and remains one of the world's best known UFO encounters. I recall seeing him in bed. He didn't look good at all. He looked pale, haggard, said Michalak, who was 9 years old at the time and was allowed to see his dad for a couple of minutes on the day after what soon became known as the Falcon Lake incident. Then there was the smell. When I walked into the bedroom, there was a huge stink in the room, like a real horrible aroma of sulfur and burnt motor. It was all around. It was coming out of his pores. It was bad, said Michalak, who co-authored the book When They Appeared with Winnipeg UFO researcher Chris Rutkowski. This is Stefan Michalak's sketch of the strange craft he encountered. The book will be launched on Saturday in conjunction with the 50th anniversary of the incident. I was very afraid. My dad had been injured and I didn't know anything about it, Michalak told CBC News in recalling that Saturday 50 years earlier. Within a couple of days, however, not only did he know more, so did much of the public. The story about his dad being burned by a UFO ran in the Winnipeg Tribune newspaper, and that's when everything pretty much hit the fan, Michalak said. The encounter. Stefan Michalak was an industrial mechanic by trade and an amateur geologist who liked to venture into the wilderness around Falcon Lake, around 150 kilometers east of Winnipeg, prospect for quartz and silver. He had staked some claims the prior year and set out on the May long weekend in 1967 to explore some more. On May 20th, 1967, Stefan was near a vein of quartz along the Precambrian shield in the area when the 51-year-old was startled by a gaggle of nearby geese that erupted into a clattering of honks. And look at this. A grid of dots. And this picture, you can see that he has what appears to be some sort of a grid of dots on his chest. Now this apparently occurred because of his UFO encounter. According to his accounts, as reported in newspapers at the time, and since repeated in books, magazines, and on TV shows like Unsolved Mysteries, Stefan looked up and saw two cigar-shaped objects with a reddish glow hovering about 45 meters away. One descended, according to Stefan's account, landing on a flat section of rock and taking on more of a disc shape. The other remained in the air for a few minutes before flying off. Believing it to be a secret U.S. military experimental craft, Stefan cut back and sketched it over the next half hour. Then he decided to approach, later recalling the warm air and smell of sulfur as he got closer, as well as the whirring sound of motors and the hissing of air. A piece of the radioactive material that was retrieved from the crash site in 1968. It was found in the cracks of the Precambrian rock. Now what is this? Is this a piece of a UFO? Apparently it was radioactive. Interesting. He also noted a door open on the side with bright lights inside and said he heard voices muffled by the sounds from the craft. He said he called out, offering mechanical help to the Yankee boys if they needed it. The voices went quiet but did not answer, so Stefan tried in his native Polish, then in Russian, and finally in German. Only the whir and hiss of the craft responded. He claims he went closer and noted the smooth metal of the ship with no seams. He then looked into the bright doorway, pulling on the welding goggles he used to protect his eyes while chipping at rocks during prospecting. Inside, Stefan said he saw light beams and panels of various colored flashing lights, but could not see anyone or any living thing. When he stepped away, 3 panels slid across the door opening and sealed it. He reached to touch the craft, which he said melted the fingertips of the glove he was wearing. The craft then began to turn counterclockwise. As Stefan says, he noticed a panel that contained a grid of holes. Shortly afterward, he was struck in the chest by a blast of air or gas that pushed him backward and sent his shirt and cap ablaze. He ripped away the burning garments as the craft lifted off and flew away. Disoriented and nauseous, Stefan stumbled through the forest and vomited. He eventually made his way back to his motel room in Falcon Lake, then caught a bus back to Winnipeg. He was treated at a hospital for burns to his chest and stomach that later turned into raised sores on a grid-like pattern, and for weeks afterwards he suffered from diarrhea, headaches, blackouts, and weight loss. Oh my. It just flipped our lives over. Once the story was out, the RCMP, the Air Force, the media, various government agencies, and hordes of gawking members of the public descended on the Michalak's Small River Heights bungalow in Winnipeg. That's who Michalak refers to in the title of the book. Those endless visitors and phone calls, the media and people camping on the lawn, the people who had followed Michalak to school one day peppering him with questions. It just flipped our lives over, he said. It took several years before it finally died down. After that, and until the day he died in 1999 at the age of 83, Stefan believed he never should have said a thing, Michalak said. But at the time, he felt it was a duty. He wanted others, if they were to see the same thing, to avoid it and not get hurt, Michalak said. And this is the cover of the book that his son wrote about the case. So we have what appears to be physical evidence of this event actually happening. We have this piece of metal. We have a burnt shirt. And we have the burns on Mr. Michalak. So, what are we to make of this? Did it actually happen? Well, if it was a hoax, it was a good one. That's assuming it was a hoax. But it's interesting. And Stan Michalak himself says if Dad hoaxed this, remember we're talking about a blue-collar industrial mechanic. If he hoaxed it, he was a freaking genius. Look at this. No one could determine what caused the burns. And they did find a circle at the landing site about 15 feet in diameter. My goodness. So did this happen? It seems to have. This seems to have been credible. Those markings came from somewhere. And he didn't seem like he was the type to hoax something. Fascinating case, if either way you look at it. If it was a hoax, it was a darn good one. But this doesn't seem to be hoaxed. At least I don't think it is. I mean, people do crazy things. Let's not get it twisted. People do crazy things, but this would have had to have been really well planned out, and this would have had to have been done by some sort of object of some sort. I don't know. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? And that's going to do it for this week. We want to thank you very much for tuning in. You guys are the heart of the show. And I thought this was going to be a program about UFO sightings all over Canada. I didn't realize this was going to be one specific case. But next week I'll probably do one about the UFO sightings across Canada, across the continent of Canada. Shouldn't be too difficult to find. So until then, y'all be good or be good at this HBM's UFO Corner.